Yashodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodhanandana Braja Janarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Do the translation together. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan. unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in the classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and the loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise is transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Thank you for having us give class this morning. It's very fun preparing. And we'll be covering verses 17 through 27 of the 18th chapter. The 17th chapter. We can go around reading the verses, and we might stop for some of the verses and read a line from the purport, and we'll elaborate more once we get to the main verse.
(17) The personality of Godhead of religion. Personality of religion said, "These words just spoken by you befit a person of the Pandava dynasty, captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas. Even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger."
And we can pull up the report here quickly. Two lines I really like, where the Pandavas, by their unalloyed devotional service and full surrender unto the Lord, made it possible for the Lord to become a chariot driver, or sometimes their letter messenger. Such duties executed by the Lord for his devotee are always very pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord wants to render service to his unalloyed devotee. And Kiara and I was just thinking about this last night when we were talking about this point, that just take a moment and also think about it like God, the source of all emanation, the controller, the absolute truth, he's literally in control of everything, the cause of all causes, and he wants to serve his devotees. He wants to take that position. He wants to serve, us, or those trying to be sincere devotees. And I was just reflecting, Arjuna, him being the chariot driver for Arjuna, he took that subordinate position out of friendship and love for Arjuna, and and he took Arjuna as he kind of controlled him. Arjuna controlled Krishna, I mean to say. And Sudama, that story also. I just think about that picture of Krishna washing Sudama's feet. Sudama is one of Krishna's best friends, and they studied together. And and even on the topic of Govardhan Hill, Krishna serving everyone by lifting the hill and protecting them. So this point about God wanting to serve us is very powerful. We can go on to the next verse.
O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers.
Some of the philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while yet others say that activity is responsible. And the gross materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause.
There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage amongst kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence.
don't have to pull them up, just so it's easy for you, but I have them right here. You can just read them. So a line from this purport, just wanted to point out. So it says, Krishna is therefore both the all-pervading impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma in everyone's heart. He is the knower of all past, present, and future, and nothing can be concealed from him. The devotees know this truth, and therefore they discharge their duty sincerely, without being overly anxious for rewards. So you can just, sit with that for a little bit, and we'll circle back with the main verse. Oh, I'm sorry. Verse 21 now. We'll read to 27. Sorry. We're just reading lines from different purports, but you don't have to go to them anymore. It's a little confusing.
Sutta Goswami said, O best among Brahmanas, the Emperor Parikshit, as hearing the personality of religion speak, was fully satisfied, and without mistake or regret, he gave his reply.
The king said, O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion.
Thus it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery.
We found that translation very powerful also, and we'll come back to it.
In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication.
Okay, I'm just going to read a line from that purport too. At the very beginning it says, the deluding energy or material nature can act upon the living beings proportionately in terms of the living beings falling prey to the deluding attraction of Maya. Moths are captivated by the glaring brightness of light, and thus they become prey to the fire. Circle back again.
You are now standing on 1 leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But coral personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg.
And from this purport, one line, no one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. That made me think about, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleaning the mirror of the heart.
The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints.
Okay. And the last one.
Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead, laments her future with tears in her eyes, for now she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers.
Okay, now we can go to the main verse, which is 22. We'll chant this. Okay, Rajo Vacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya
Dharma Bravisi Dharmagya
Dharmo Sivresha Rupadrik
Dharma Sivresha Rupadrik
Yada Dharma Kritastanam
Yada Dharma Kritastanam
Sucha Kasya Pitat Bhavet
Sucha Kasya Pitat Bhavet
You can go higher, that was pretty.
Rajo Vacha,
Vacha,
Dharmam Bravisi Dharmagya,
Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya,
Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik,
Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik,
Yada Dharma Kritastanam,
Yada Dharma Kritastanam,
Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet,
Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet, Rajo Vacha, Dharmam Bravisi Dharmagya, Dharmasi Vrisharupadrik, Yada Dharma Kritastanam, Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet,
Rajo Vacha,
Rajo Vacha,
Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya,
Dharmam Bravisi Dharmagya,
Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik,
Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik, Yada Dharma Kritastanam,
Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet,
Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet, Rajo Vacha, Dharmam Bravisi Dharmagya, Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik, Yada Dharma Kritastanam, Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet, Rajo Vacha, Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya, Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik, Yada Dharma Kritastanam, Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet, Rajo Vacha, Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya, Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik, Yada Dharma Kritastanam, Suchakasya Pitad Bhavet. We can do the synonyms together. Raja Vacha, the king said,
Dharma, religion, Bravisi, as you speak, Dharmagya, O one who knows the codes of religion, Dharma, the personality of religion, Asi, you are, Vrisharupadrik, in the disguise of a bull, Yat, whatever, Dharma Krita, one who acts religiously, Sanam, place, Suchakasya, of the identifier, he also, Tad, that, Bhavet, becomes.
religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of religious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. And someone can read the purport.
A devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief monger without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he does not consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action, but in both the cases he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God's sent, and thus it is his grace. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it is God sent, but in the case of loss or reverse, one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotees as to put him in great difficulty. My man, Jesus Christ was seemingly put into such great difficulty being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief mongers. That is the way of accepting a thing, either favorable or unfavorable. Thus, for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief monger. By God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. Maharaj Parikshit observed this, and therefore he could understand that the bull was no other than the personality of religion himself.
In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all because so-called suffering is also God's grace for a devotee who sees God in everything.
The cow and bull never placed any complaint before the king for being tortured by the personality of Kali, although everyone lodges such complaints before the state authorities. The extraordinary behavior of the bull made the king conclude that the bull was certainly the personality of religion, for no one else could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of religion.
No, okay. So we're kind of going to focus on the theme of truthfulness. So Kali Yuga has started. Kali Yuga personified came in the form of the Shudra dressed as a Brahmana. And just a question, does anyone know what Satya means? I just learned yesterday. Truthfulness, right? Truth, like pure truth, or like the essence. And so yesterday in Bhakti Shastri class, Prabhupada Priya, we were going over the different yugas. So it starts with Satya, and then Treta, and Dwapara, and now we're in Kali Yuga. And so I thought it was interesting that Satya means truth, or the essence, and that is also the last limb of Dharma that's here in this age of Kali. So, the 4 limbs of Dharma, it begins with austerity, then there's cleanliness, and there's mercy, and then truthfulness. So with each yuga, the austerity leaves first, and then cleanliness, then mercy, and now we're left with truthfulness, kind of. But I think the fact that, Satya means truthfulness, it's the last limb remaining, or the leg of Dharma. Truthfulness is very important, and we're going to discuss that in the sense of, we're going to be talking about acceptance, what was the other, tolerance, and forgiveness. So we can go back to the translation. Maybe we can read it together. The king said, "O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion." Okay. Do we enjoy in this world? This kind of, somewhat. Are we the enjoyers? No. Some of us, we're trying to be. Sometimes we're the enjoyer, sometimes we're not. But we often try to be. Where do I want to go with this? So, so on this topic of Krishna being the enjoyer, and we're not the enjoyers, but we think we are. Just a short anecdote I shared in Bhakti Shastri class the other day. I think it was with Advaita Prabhu. Maybe sometime last year, I had this picture up of Krishna, and he was baby Krishna, and it was his bathing ceremony, and all the residents of Vrindavan were looking at baby Krishna being abhisheked, and I was like, what is up with that baby? Like, what is so special about that guy that everyone is standing around him looking at him? That's envy. That's why we're here. Krishna's enjoying, everyone's loving him, he's receiving the love of everyone, and we want to be in that position. So it's just very interesting that from the beginning of our life, we're raised by some parent or guardian, and we think that, they should cater to us, like we should be little Krishna and have everything be perfect. And basically our whole personalities are just like a giant complex because our parents didn't love us the way we wanted them to love us, kind of thing. So we're not the enjoyers, and things are going to happen to us, and that's the system that Krishna put in place so we can realize we're not the enjoyers. So going back to the translation, says that the destination intended for the perpetrator of a religious act is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. Does anyone want to comment on that? Any thoughts on that? Doesn't make any sense. No. Snitch. Snitch.
What does it mean exactly?
What do you? It's up to interpretation, I guess.
I don't know.
I think it's just it's a commentary on the topic of duality and getting too caught up in a dualistic way of thinking. The Vedas speak of acceptance and rejection. And yeah, we accept and reject things both when we are, perpetrating irreligious acts, but when we're also too caught up in judging others and thinking about what's fair and unfair, we also get stuck in a system of duality, which is also detrimental to our spiritual growth.
You had something to say, and then you go Paul and then Christina.
So I was just thinking that
Can everybody hear me? I was just thinking that a lot of times the thing that disturbs us most that is the quality that is actually within ourselves, and we see that in ourselves and we fool ourselves to think that it's not in ourselves, and then when we see it in someone else, it really upsets us a lot because it's a trigger. Exactly. So the thing that we may be complaining about is the thing we may also be guilty of.
Thank you.
And I think just to comment on that, I think certain instances will make us realize, like our own, flaws or things we can work on, like Prabhu was saying, like through other people also. But yeah, on that note, it's like, all these instances is like shattering the false ego, maybe like bit by bit, but that like makes us grow in Krishna consciousness just by being more humble and like aware of like what we need to work on.
Maybe it illustrates we're not supposed to criticize anybody, not just devotees, and also it's described that at the time of death, if we're thinking of our enemy, we take birth in that person's family. So, in that sense, I can see where there's some kind of connection. Like if you're always meditating on how much you hate some section of society, the laws of karma, a good chance you're going to take birth in that. And so maybe something like that. I don't know.
It's interesting. Thank you. And then Christina, and then Prabhupada.
So for me, it's like, well, there's life and death, and then there's liberation, right? So it's like, if there's a perpetrator and and then you're identifying the perpetrator, you're still caught up in the cycle of life and death. You're both still gonna die, and that that cycle matters to you, and that's different from from being liberated or seeing that there's more than life and death. So yeah, for me, it's kind of this binary of like, okay, well, there's the cycle of life and death, there's karma, and that's what binds you to it and makes you think that it matters. And if you can, through Krishna consciousness, see that there's something else, you can automatically become liberated. Then that is when you achieve the true purpose of religion and transcend that perpetrator identifier cycle. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So for me, there's a couple of things here. First is that it's encouraging us to take personal responsibility for our situation in life and discouraging us from blaming others for our situation in life. So yeah, identifying the perpetrator means it's his fault. He's the one who hurt me, that guy over there with the stick, so, but the bull is, he's like, no, actually, I mean, this wouldn't happen if I didn't have the karma and I must have done something in my past life and I'm just reaping the rewards. So actually I'm doing this to myself. The other aspect is that, like what's said here, is that Krishna is the ultimate cause of everything. And Krishna is also our best friend. So whatever happens to us is ultimately for our good. So if we actually see it like that, oh, this is actually for my benefit, this is helping me to advance, it's helping me to understand my situation, this is a good thing, then why would you blame someone? You'd be thanking them, right? You just see them as the agent of Krishna and trying to help you understand and learn something about this world and your situation in it and how, is an impetus to make spiritual advancement. So in either case, if it's my fault, then why would I blame someone else? And if Krishna is doing this for my own good, why would I, be angry at someone else?
Okay, Prema, Gopi, Shruti. I'm cutting y'all off after that. No, okay. Sorry, just kidding. I'm tired too. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what about if not identifying this person could mean that they continue to hurt other people? That's what confuses me about this, is if there's a murderer out there and he tries to murder you and you get away and you know who it is, you don't want to identify him because then you'll also get the negative, but you probably should, or he's going to kill more people. So is that, I'm a little confused.
I can touch on that. I think the direction we were going in was kind of more micro, but that macro approach, we should identify perpetrators, we shouldn't let people do whatever and whatever, but we also don't have proper kshatriyas that are actually pious and not corrupt and promoting these perpetrations. I don't know the word. So we should still do what we can with what we have, to the best that we can. I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. We definitely need to keep law and order. It can be improved, but I think for me, and I think Nistha, this verse was more internal. All of these things exist in the world. It's not independent of us. It's within us too. So we can work on ourselves, identify the things in ourselves and understand that it's our collective problem. And so we can like point fingers and it's like, oh, they're this or that, and we are this and that, but it's really like just all of our condition in the material world.
I was thinking when Ashwatthama killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas, and Krishna was there, and he, his instruction was that Ashwatthama should be found and killed. And so, perpetrator of crimes have to be identified. It's just the code, or moral code. It has to happen, and Kshatriyas have to protect people. There's no question about it. But as you said, internally as devotees, we don't see that person as the perpetrator of that suffering that has come from that act. In this verse, because we did something in the past, we are getting a certain reaction. And if we just focus on that person, that person was a source of that reaction, we're actually off philosophically. We were the source, of that thing to happen in the broader scheme of things. So and if we keep blaming and we don't realize there's a lesson for us to learn, it'll keep happening. That means, that's the thing. That's why when a person just blames somebody else,
he gets the same result as a perpetrator, because it'll keep happening to him till he learns his lesson. Unless he stops and blaming people and realizes, I have done this to myself somehow or the other. Yeah.
So you still tell, but you don't blame him for share that information, but you don't.
Yeah, you take responsibility that just not that I must have, but I have actually done something to deserve this somehow. Like, that's basically the law of karma, that somehow has come to me. And also devotionally, we can see that Krishna is sending this to me to learn lessons and for me to come closer to him. But yeah, so this person, that's what Prabhupada often said, this person is an instrument of our karma. And of course, that person still has responsibility. That person should be stopped. And we see that from the example of Pandavas and Krishna and so forth. Like, they stopped bad people. Just has to happen. Otherwise, it'll be chaotic. Not everybody can just be the saintly person, has to happen. But internally, yeah, as devotees, we see that actually. This is just a small portion of my bad reaction that Krishna is sending me to realize that I need to go back to God.
Yeah, on that point of just, like Krishna sending people to teach us like lessons, or like him arranging everything also, like what Prabhupada was saying, like, ultimately he knows what's best for us, and sometimes it's really hard to see it in the moment. Just like a small personal anecdote, like, just like last year, like it was a really hard situation I was going through. And I lost this community that I was very attached to. And, I always kept that initial faith in Krishna. Like, I never lost faith in Krishna. It's just, that question, like, why? Like, why the suffering? Like, what did I do for this? But it's like he really did arrange it, in hindsight, for my betterment. I mean, honestly, otherwise I wouldn't be here at Krishna House. So it's like, yeah. But in that moment, I was so like absorbed in the situation and blaming the people involved, and it was just very unhealthy. But yeah, like, so Krishna can sometimes close a door and open another. And yeah, I've really realized that in my life.
Yeah, like the topic of truthfulness, we have to be honest with ourselves, and fortunately we have this knowledge, so we have to accept like the truth of our condition. Like, everything is meant to humble us. And I asked that question once because I tend to like hold my tongue too much when I'm like upset and like bottle it up. So I was like, well, but it's like my false ego. It's like, I shouldn't say anything, right? It's like, well, at a certain point, like you have to say things because it'll just disturb your mind more, disturb your Krishna consciousness. But you still have that like understanding that it's yeah, like what we're talking about, we have to learn from it. And I like the point that you made about when we're criticizing others, when we're seeing things in others, they treated me like badly, this and that, or whatever. It's a lot of words, whatever. It's usually parts of ourselves that we're keeping so hidden that we're ashamed of. And so we see it in others and it triggers us. But when that comes up, we just have to try to tie it to Krishna, do something to work through it. Yeah.
This person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. By the grace of the Lord, I'm only suffering a token reaction. Better to tolerate than to protest. This person is acting helplessly under the influence of the three modes of material nature and the control of God. It's not his fault.
Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, we kind of have to accept our position, accept others because they're in the same position in this material world, accept the truth of what Krishna has in store for us, like just the way this world functions. Like in the purport says, in case of benefit, no one will deny that it is God sent, but in case of loss or reverses, one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee as to put him in great difficulty. So if we accept that, why we're here and the way karma works and everything, then we can you just accept it more and maybe even hopefully be grateful for it when we do experience difficulty, because it shows you something about yourself. It shows you, it's just the truth. The truth feels good, even if it's painful. It feels good. It is liberating. So, we have gratitude for that, and we come to appreciate, everything that Krishna is doing in our lives, and we come to accept other people more because we understand that he's doing the same thing for them. Can try to tolerate more, our own hardships and, whatever annoyances happen. And it can get a little tricky when, maybe you're not provoking me or something, but maybe Krishna sends some calamity into my life. I don't know. You can talk about Queen Kunti. I know you wanted to mention her.
Yeah, like Queen Kunti, she was like, maybe we're definitely not on her level, but she was praying for sufferings because she actually remembered Krishna more. And one of the ways people take up Krishna consciousness and look into God is through distress. So it's on that point. But I was also going to comment about accepting, on that note, accepting whatever comes our way, the happiness and distress, matra sparsha sukhanteya, but also accepting others, but accepting yourself, because I feel like when you accept yourself and recognize where you're struggling and things like that, then you can actually make spiritual advancement. If you're kind of lying to yourself and saying I'm a good devotee, I have no flaws, I'm perfect. There's no room for growth there. So it's just looking into yourself, being introspective, and
I have two things to say about that.
Go ahead.
Krishna loves us a lot, and he loves us so much that he is doing so much to try to get us to come back to him. It's if he loves us, what the heck are we doing? I'm very much mode of ignorance, victim mentality, and it's very not conducive to spiritual growth, right? But if you try to understand, you realize that Krishna loves you. It's okay, well, then this is supposed to happen. I'm supposed to experience this. Everyone is loved by Krishna. What? It's kind of who are we to judge others or criticize others if Krishna loves them? The supreme person is we can't be that compassionate because that's inconceivable, but I don't know, just kind of think about that and it's wow, it's very, very cool. And maybe also we're not, yeah.
I just had something to share. Thank you very much. That was just very inspiring to me. If it's okay, I would just like to share something that I heard from His Holiness Vitthalaji Maharaj. He says that Krishna is perfect, Krishna doesn't make mistakes, and Krishna loves us. So it's along that line that it kind of makes me personally makes me think, okay, yeah, this was supposed to happen, and Krishna loves me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Inside? And then Jonathan.
I think at one point you said that this verse meant more internal sense to you, and I was appreciating that because a devotee, when things happen, something bad happens to him, a pure devotee, they don't blame the surroundings, they don't blame the external factors, we hear in the case of the Avanti Brahman, how he was thinking that everything's happening because of my mind. These people are not actually the reason for my suffering. But at the same time, a devotee does not impose that mentality on others. Like they're thinking that, okay, what is happening to me? They take responsibility. But when someone else needs to be helped, they don't think that, but that person should also think like that. But then they go out of the way and they have compassion to help that person. And so when everybody tries to like get that mindset, like rather than taking, it's just becomes such a selfless like society. But everyone's trying to, when someone else is in distress, they're trying to help them. But when something is happening to them, so then everyone will be looked after, everyone will be cared for. It's not that someone will be like very badly mistreated, and but it's a very ideal state to be in. But I just like that idea that devotee does not impose this mentality on others, but it's internal.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Jonathan had his hand up first, and then you can make your point.
So I was just thinking that when a real kshatriya does identify a perpetrator and does inflict some punishment, the mentality is so much different from blame, and it's and it's explained in Bhishmadev's teachings to Yudhishthira that the kshatriya is punishing for the sake of the perpetrator, so that they actually are released from the sin in the least cumbersome way possible. And when we're under a real just system of justice, which ultimately we all are because we're under the Lord's divine protection, then being identified as a perpetrator is actually the best thing for you, because it's going to lead to your ultimate rectification. But that so-called punishment is actually a mercy. It's not done with blame and beat you down kind of mentality. Yeah, I just wanted to say, man, how cool is it that, Jesus was referred to as a devotee, and him fulfilling the Lord's will for him to leave this earth, to leave his bodily form and to go back to the spiritual world. And Jesus of Nazareth was Shakti Avish avatar, one of the most fully empowered mystic yogis that's ever been on this earth. And what's so amazing is that he accepted that will, and it was very difficult for him, though. It was said that the night before, when he knew, he took some of his disciples and he went off into the desert, and he was so pained knowing that this is what he would have to face tomorrow. He started sweating blood, and in order to just help him process what he was going to have to do, he used all his mystical powers, and he took a huge chunk of karma for us, and that's what he took on when they say that he relieved us of our sins by his death. He actually cleared a big pathway for a lot of people on earth to be able to take on the spiritual path. So that's wonderful to hear him acknowledged in that way, and that is a good example that no matter how scary that our destiny is going to be, or the things that we're asked to face, or the things we're going to face we don't even know, that we can have acceptance for it and then face it head on, and even be supported by the people surrounding us. But my question is, with all this talk of acceptance, when should we say, no, I'm not going to accept this? I'm not going to tolerate this. This isn't okay. And I'm going to put my foot down.
I feel like, yeah, like creating and, having like healthy boundaries is really important. It'll, keep interactions between devotees and, yourself even very like good. But yeah, I think acceptance more in the sense of like, I guess, yeah, like not everything is going to go exactly how you plan in your head, like expectations might not meet reality. And it's like, yeah, if something is bothering you and, you set that boundary, you should definitely talk about it with like mentors or like trusted friends. But it's like, at the end of the day, you don't, like devotees shouldn't really hold grudges. So it's just a matter of like accepting like, like this happened to me, but I didn't like it. And I tried to explain it to them through the help of like mentors, but it's like not holding grudges maybe.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that it's justified to express anger when a devotee is being attacked or criticized or wronged. I don't know where the line comes for oneself, but it definitely should. It should not, things shouldn't always be tolerated. That's just circumstantial. I think I saw, I don't know what order, sorry, the Radhika, I saw you and you and you. Please all speak.
I think to Jonathan's point about when should we put our foot down, I think I asked one time, to what degree should we tolerate something, because we're supposed to tolerate as much as a tree, be more humble than a blade of grass. And the answer I heard at that time was, yeah, we're supposed to tolerate, but we may not be at that stage. So in that case, if it's disturbing our mind, we have to think what is best for our spiritual life. So if it's going to be always on our mind and we can't focus on our chanting, we can't focus on our devotional service, that's something that should be brought up. Obviously cases of abuse and things like that, but if it's something that's, bugging you, but then it just goes away, it doesn't disturb you so much, then maybe it doesn't have to be brought up, but you don't have to put your foot down in that case. That's what happened.
Thank you.
A quick way to remember that is always, like, the rule of thumb is accept what's favorable for our devotional service and reject what's unfavorable. So if it's favorable for our devotional service to tolerate, and we can really feel that, we can ask our Shiksha gurus, then that's what we should do. As soon as it becomes unfavorable for our devotional service, if we're getting, like, if we're in an abusive relationship, or if we're, like, in some way like that, and like Radhika said, that's always the rule, accept what's favorable and reject what's unfavorable for devotional service.
Also, it's important that we look out for each other, because a devotee may have this very humble, tolerant mood and accept a situation which is not good for them, thinking, whatever, Krishna has sent this to me, I'll just accept it as his mercy. But, every devotee should have friends and mentors and people that are looking out for them and care for them, and they'll see, like, what's going on, you look distressed, or, you look troubled, and then you can find out the situation, and then you can do something, or you can notify devotees who can do something to help the devotee to be in a more favorable situation. Mm-hmm. So that's important.
Thank you, Gopi. Long awaited.
I'll go quick because there's a few things. The first thing is from Rasika Prabhu, who's tuning in. He just also wanted to agree with what a lot of devotees have said, that of course, criminals need to be held accountable, and we have a duty to kind of report them. But a devotee, in terms of their personal experience, is always thinking that everything is due to their karma. And he made the point that a lot of us have heard maybe before from Prabhupada's writings, that the devotee thinks that whatever I'm experiencing is just a tiny fraction of what I deserve, and Krishna has been merciful to me already, and what I'm getting is much smaller. Then I also just wanted to say on what Jonathan brought up, we have to put our foot down sometimes, but I think what's important is to realize that there's different ways of communicating things. If someone does something that doesn't work for us, it's not so much necessarily about whether we're going to say something or not, but about how exactly we react, in what manner we react. We can be very reactionary and inflammatory and just create so much more distress in how we respond, or if we're
In the mode of goodness, we can just say, as others have mentioned, with the help of mentors, we can just communicate in a very detached or calm way. Wherever this doesn't work for me, I think we need to find a solution, etc., etc. And I don't know, is there time to quickly share an interesting story? Or should we end there?
Yeah,
Sorry?
yes, yes.
Yeah? So it's very relevant to this verse. I don't know if any of you remember my friend Savisachi from South Africa. He visited here earlier this year. We did some Harinam with him. So I wasn't present for the story, but I heard about it. It's very interesting. In the early 2000s, I think, Savisachi was a young devotee, and he's black-bodied, of course. And for anyone who doesn't know, South Africa has a very controversial history, lots of racial tension, discrimination, hatred, because of the system of apartheid, which is like very intense racial segregation that was all over the country for many decades. But then Savisachi went to a poetry slam in the city of Johannesburg, very hip city, very cool. So he went to a poetry slam and there was like an open mic, and he went up and he started doing this poetry recital about the black man and his struggles, and the white man and the oppressor, and really like built up the tension. And in the end he said, and all of you, because there's a black audience, and all of you will take birth as that white man because you're constantly just focused on him. So it's a little bit of a controversial story, but Savisachi, as a devotee, thought it fit to share some philosophical insights.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything? We have a few minutes. More questions. So I know you wanted to comment on the last verse 27.
Oh yeah.
The purport.
I'm gonna read the last sentence.
If no one else has anything to say.
This is from the last verse, the end of the purport. And in the absence of a suitable king to curb irreligious tendencies, educating the people systematically in the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam will clear up the hazy atmosphere of corruption, bribery, blackmail, etc.
Jai. Yeah, I would like one more thing from the 9th chapter, verse 42. Kind of like going off of that, like Kali Yuga, it's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, and we're going to do what we can in this age, but like Krishna like made this sequence of yugas like for a reason. Like we want to enjoy so much that we're still here. So we're here, we're blessed with the Maha Mantra and Devotee Association, so we're going to do what we can. I don't know, that kind of like my train of thought goes to like trying to be in the world but not of the world, and like just connecting more with in our community, like with other devotees, but also outside of Krishna House, outside of ISKCON, outside of like other religious faiths. So I just want to read the translation for this. It says, "Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Shri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one." You can do with that as you will. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.